Trust the process. Pain is power. All great things take time. I am unbreakable. Unbreakable.
Hello everyone, welcome to the UnBreakables Podcast, episode 3. I am your host, Jay. Today I have the pleasure of sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend, former NFL player. He is a star of American Gladiator. He is an author, TEDx speaker, just to name a few. You guys, I can't even begin to fathom right now. Please help me welcome Mr. Dan Nitro Clark.
Did you say welcome or whack him? I thought you said whack him. Let me help me whack him. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be that kind of podcast.
When I get overly excited, I'm like, my words. No.
Whack him. Well, whack him is good. I think I'm going to use that for my podcast. Help me whack him. It could be like a thing, like gong somebody, right? Oh, ding. That's a new intro. We should use that. Whack him.
Dan, honestly, I'm so honored right now and completely thank you again for making the drive over here, especially from your side of town. And it was just a matter of time. And let's just start by, I always like to start my guest off and just starting off with your childhood. And then we'll slowly transition in what led you here today. I really want to dive into your hardships, your adversities.
Well, the 405 is how I got here today. Did you guess take a different route?
He's a jokester, I see. No. No, but let's really deep dive. And then let's talk about what led you to success and fulfillment, most importantly.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So how was your childhood? And if we can just start from there.
You're stopping right in. You're just diving in. How was my childhood?
We're gonna dive in.
Yeah. Look, everyone has a childhood, and I think very few people I've talked to in my 55 years on this planet have said, oh, my childhood was amazing.
Yeah.
Everyone, regardless if you're growing up in the Congo and there's war going on, or if you're living in Beverly Hills, everyone has difficulties in their childhood, and to them they're just as real. So I never like to say, oh, my childhood was rough. It was for me, like most people, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. Divorce at a young age, being separated from my mother. Father was a Marine. Father could, back in those days, listen to me, whack. So that was a little bit more the way it was, not that it was right. But I think the biggest thing everyone needs to do is to learn to overcome their childhood.
Yes, absolutely.
So learn to heal that parental wound, and there comes a time where you're 22, 25, 28, 18, where you say, hey, that's what happened to me. That was my history. I now have to take my life and my future in my own hands.
Actually take ownership of it and no longer look at yourself as the victim of it, correct?
Yes. Yeah, take ownership of it and start to look forward and say, hey, that's what happened to me, but it's up to me to change, become who I want now. I am in complete control. And the minute you take control, you take ownership. Take control, you take ownership. You can stop being, pressured in the past. There's that saying, driving, if you're looking too much in the rearview mirror, you never see where you're going, right? I think too many people do that. But it's hard because your past, not only is it help you navigate what creates pain for you in the future, on a conscious level, it also does it on a subconscious level. We have an organ in our brain called the amygdala, which has an emotional memory that is our conscious mind isn't aware of. So I got such a bad feeling about that. You're like, why? There was this Vietnam vet who was doing really, really well. He had PTSD, fought in the Vietnam War, but he'd gotten through all that. He had 25 years, was here, was married. 25 years later, he started to get panic attacks. He started to get anxiety again.
Just out of nowhere.
And he's like, well, what happened? That was 25, 30 years ago. And he went and met with a therapist, and they're talking to the therapist, and they discovered one thing. They discovered that his wife had changed the soap in his bathroom. Now, why is that significant? Because the soap smelt like the same soap they used in the military in Vietnam.
Ooh, so it triggered something.
It triggered something that was beyond the conscious thought level. And he was getting this attacks. They changed the soap, boom. So a lot of times things happen to us in our daily life that are linked to our past that we're not quite aware of. And I think one of the things you do is you start to self-actualize, fancy word for grow up, take control of your life, is that you start to clear that stuff out. You no longer, as you said, be a victim of your past and things that trigger you and keep you from, who you want to be. You take control of that and tread a new path forward.
So would you say that you've always had that mentality even from a younger kid? So let's just backtrack a little bit. So when you were younger, I know I've watched many podcasts of you, and where you
watched podcasts?
Watched podcasts. Yeah, even heard your TED Talk. I must say, great TED Talk, by the way.
Thank you.
But going back, when you were, let's say, 10 years old, when you were sexually abused. So taking us back to that point and that mindset, looking back, what tools and what strategies did you use to overcome that negative mindset?
Well, that didn't give me a negative mindset. You're making an assumption, yeah. And the abuse was, I don't know on the scale of abuses. I guess it was minor. It wasn't penetrated. A guy didn't do that thing. It was just a caretaker that we had was like getting on top of me when I was 10 years old and trying to and then my older brother was in the same room. This is when we were living overseas, and he saw that, and he didn't say anything at the time, but the next morning he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you doing? You can't let that happen." He said that, which is so un-PC right now, because that's fag shit, man. You don't let anybody do that to you.
So he checked you, basically.
He checked me, and I was 8 or 10 years. I was 8 to 10 years old, and I was like, "What? You don't know what's wrong. You don't know." Okay, and then I, at that point, I realized, okay, don't let some guy get on you and do that. But it wasn't something that traumatized me. I think the trauma. I think if it was something more happened, it might have traumatized me. But it was just like, okay, I learned something. I learned fire is hot, don't touch it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I learned if a kid's bigger than you, don't mouth off. You get punched in the face. So it didn't have a horrific effect on me. Now, what rocked my world when I was young was when my older brother died. He got into an accident, electrical accident, and he basically died in my arms. Now, that was the moment.
Absolutely.
That was a crease in the fabric of who I was and who I became and who I am today. And I'm sure it motivates a lot of things. There's still that little voice in my head that says, if you're not safe, if you're not careful, people get hurt. And that's a theme that comes up. And I'm like, okay, this is where it comes from. You talk about survivor's guilt. Why do you push so hard? Why do you work so hard? You feel guilty for living, especially if you have someone in your life who was so much better than you. I was a little brother. I was, chubby. I wasn't athletic.
You looked up to him. Yeah,
he was tall. He was thin. He was my hero. I was comfortable in his shadow. And all of a sudden he wasn't there to protect me. So, that was tough. My dad was a Marine. He didn't talk about feelings a lot. He kind of manned up. My mom is Asian, and from Japanese, and the culture isn't one where there's a lot of emotion and counseling. And not even one person. My dad never, until he died, had a conversation with me like, "Hey, you lost your brother, man. I know I'm hurting. I know it's going to be hard for you. Stick with it. That the pain will go away. It's not." I've never had one conversation. And I saw my dad drink and cry. And when I was 10, that's when I started drinking, because I saw my dad drink. And I think that's what you do to kill the pain. And that started a cycle, I would think, of addiction, of numbing, of using different substances.
Pushing the problem away, right?
Yeah.
Numbing it.
Yeah. Until you were, that's stayed with me until I was in my 30s. Whether it was party drugs. And I think the challenge is...
Party drugs, alcohol, no.
Yeah, that is right. Don't discount that, because I think a lot of back then I'm just having fun. I'm not trying to kill the emptiness. I'm not trying to numb. I'm having fun. I'm partying. I'm doing all this stuff. But you realize, like you said, you are numbing. You're trying to deal with something you don't want to deal with. And then once these chemicals get their hooks in your brain, I was lucky that we didn't have, the opioids back then. I was lucky that we didn't have meth back then. I probably wouldn't have made it, because the hooks in your brain are so much stronger. I mean, we were doing cocaine, we were doing PCP, we were doing acid, all that stuff when I was smoking pot when I was 14 years old. But I don't think those are quite as addictive as the things we have out today. And I'm lucky, because I wouldn't be here, would not be here.
Wow. Man, so what would you say, like, going through that traumatic event, you numbed yourself with alcohol. But at what point did you say, you know what, it's time to face it, it's time to own it, and it's time to how do I say it, not heal from it, but use your pain as your fuel in that sense? Like, when did you face it?
I don't think in that situation you use your pain as fuel. I think you maybe being overlooked, not getting picked for the varsity team, kids teasing you, you can use that pain for fuel a lot of times. But when you're 10, you don't have the psychological, currency to think, oh, I'm hurt. How do I use this for fuel? You don't think, oh, I'm drinking to cover the pain. It's not even aware. I think for me, it wasn't until I was like in my late 20s, where I had everything I wanted in my life. I was on TV, I was famous. We're selling out Madison Square Garden on American Gladiators, and there was this emptiness inside, and I found myself weeping, and waking up on the floor, drunk, drugged up, and just like, why am I crying? I have everything I want, and then that's when it became apparent. I think before then, a lot of times, for me, I was just reactionary. Just like, okay, I'm doing this, and all my friends at that time were like, man, you've got the best life, you've got the great life, and I thought I did. I was out in Hollywood. I was, going to all the cool places. I was hanging out with famous people, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I was there and I was going home sad every night.
Like you were miserable, right?
Huh?
Like it wasn't like you were just miserable.
No, I was like the happiest guy everybody knew. Go lucky, easy, happy. But it was when the moments when my defenses were down, when I was, high out of my mind and alone, that's when I was like, I'm waking up weeping, something's wrong. And that's when I raised my hand when I was like 28 years old and I started therapy and I got help. And when we did that was a long time ago. It wasn't like, therapy is for crazy people.
Right.
Now I just look at it as like rent a friend.
Rent a friend, basically.
Well, it is. You go there, you pay someone money, they got to listen to you, right? You hope that they're a good friend. They can't leave. They can't take phone calls.
Give you a little bit of advice from time to time.
From time to time, depending on the type of therapy. I had a therapist who was, just, yeah. I think I would tell him all these stories, and he was like, oh, wow, these are good. You didn't offer much advice. So, you have to find the right fit depending on what you need to do. And I'm a big believer in cognitive behavioral therapy. I think everybody's journey is different. For my journey, so much of it was about, overcoming my past. And again, I lived a good life. I was happy until I wasn't.
So take us back to the NFL days. How did that happen? Did you always plan on being a football player?
No, I went to Saddleback High School down here locally. And I went
Santa Ana, right?
Yeah, Santa Ana. And then I went to, in high school, I was a good football player, but guys from Saddleback, they just don't get scholarships. It just never happened. Not to a D1 school. Not back then. I don't know if it's what's happened since then. But
still the same.
Yeah, it just didn't happen. I don't know if they have a football team. So it wasn't like you're in the neighborhood with kids who are going to Harvard, where they're getting that kind of wealth or going to play pro football or baseball. It wasn't, the ceiling was different than it is now. Now there's the internet. Anybody can do anything.
More opportunity.
Well, it's not that there's necessarily more opportunity. The opportunity was the same. The ceiling of self-belief is different. So you have an idea what's possible because you see other people do it through internet, through whatever. You start this media company, you start doing a podcast. But if you didn't have social media and you didn't have access to a computer, you wouldn't know what's possible for someone.
It's very true.
Who came from where you came from, what you did. You just would like, oh, no. Well, it wouldn't even be in the realm of like, hey, I could do that. And that's how it was, growing up in Santa Ana. So I played football. I was pretty good in high school. And then I got a job. I wasn't even going to go to college. So a lot of people think everything is so planned out. For some people it is. I'm going to be a doctor. I knew at a young age. I studied. But I think a lot of, especially entrepreneurs, things happen by chance.
Absolutely. And I could attest to that.
Yes. So I wasn't going to play football. I was working at the South Coast Plaza in Orange County.
That's close.
Which is a premier mall. I was working selling metal etchings at a kiosk out of Sears. A kiosk, one of those little pop-up things, and there are these paintings, and I wore a suit, and I thought it was pretty cool because I wore a suit, and I was making, I think, $400 a week cash. They're paying me under the table. My girlfriend was still the head cheerleader, from high school, Paula Roberts, fantastic girl, and she worked at Ralph Lauren, the Polo store, and she would get like a 70% discount on clothes. That was huge. So I could dress like, like Ralph Lauren. I was cool. I had the, cheerleader. And,
living the life, right?
Yeah, and I had a car. I was making $400 a week, and I was set. I was done. Then one day by chance, my high school track coach, Coach Rob James, came by. And he said, hey, I'm over at Santa Ana Junior College now, and I'm a football coach. You're pretty good. Just come by. I'm like, what? Nah, coach. Hey, thanks, man. Good to see you, man. I'm rolling here, man. I'm rolling. I'm doing good. I'm not playing.
Why would you want to change that, right?
Yeah, I was comfortable. And I thought I was doing well, again, based upon the ceiling. My ceiling was this is good. I've got money. I didn't understand, long vision yet. But what he said sat with me. This just chance interaction of him happening to walk by Sears when I happened to be working. And 3 weeks later, I went down to Santa Ana Junior College. I think it's Rancho Santiago, or maybe it changed back.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I'm thinking about coming out and playing football. So I did. And I was good enough to get a scholarship to San Jose State, which is a D1 school, top 20 in the country. So I was decent. And then from there, I didn't get drafted, tried out for a team, didn't make it. Then went over to Europe and played for a year, then came back and played for the Rams. Didn't play long. I was a good bench warmer for about a season. But I had that, that whole NFL experience, which was good. And then after that dream of, being in the NFL due to an injury finished, I came out to Hollywood. And again, it wasn't a plan.
It just happened.
You know what? I just realized it all centers around the South Coast Plaza. After I finished playing with the Rams, I was at the South Coast Plaza with my buddy Jim, who ended up being Laser on the Gladiators. He also played. And we're at the South Coast Plaza again. And I run into a chance meeting, a guy named Floyd Ragland, who had played a little bit for the Dolphins. And he was working in TV on a show called First and 10 on HBO. It's a show that O.J. Simpson. It was a football show. And I saw that guy, and I was like, man, I saw you on TV. I said, you're famous. You're on TV. You're famous. I didn't know he was an extra.
Really?
He was a featured background player. But back then, again, you saw someone on TV, you're like,
you automatically assumed they were famous.
They're famous. They must be making a ton of money. He's hanging out with Stallone and Eddie and all these guys.
Stallone.
You just assume.
Right.
You didn't understand how it worked. I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't know no one knew what an extra was. So he goes, look, I can get you on the show. And I'm like, what? Me and Jim are like, what? He goes, yeah, come up to L.A. to check it out, see if you like L.A., And when I was 18, going from here, Orange County, to L.A. was like, whoa.
Big difference.
It was like going from here to China. It was like, whoa, gonna go up there? I'd never been up there. Never been to Los Angeles. Now, my sister's sons and both my sister's sons, they go back and forth all the time in high school.
Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, in high school, it's like, you don't go up there, man. That's Los Angeles. That's Hollywood.
It's untouchable now.
That's untouchable. So I was like, okay, cool. We went up and met him on one Saturday, and we went to Sunset Boulevard, and we'd never been to Sunset Boulevard. It was like,
so you were 18, and that was your first time?
No. This was after college, after playing football.
Okay.
So I was 23, 24, and I was like, whoa, I'm on Sunset Boulevard. This is crazy. And we're at Chin Chin's, a restaurant that still exists. And next to us, there was a table of these like 5'10" models. And Floyd happened to know them. And I was girl crazy. He happened to know them. And he brought the models over. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in Hollywood. There's models. I'm so moving up here. But I said, there's one problem. I come from Orange County, and the culture in Orange County is very plaid and eyes out and pink colors. It was back then. Everybody wears like black up here. That's dangerous. It's a little scary. But, we were so brave. My buddy and I, we went and got our release, and we moved up to Los Angeles to be extras on this show called First and 10. And that's how that happened.
So that's how it happened.
And then from there, we were doing that, and there was a magazine, which would now be something that would probably be on the internet, that they had auditions for different kinds of shows. It was called Drama Law. You'll pick it up at 7-Eleven, you open the back, kind of like the classified ad used to be for jobs before there was
Penny
Monster.
Saver, right?
Slightly, kind of like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah, but now everything's online.
Yeah.
Before it was actually something you pick up, and I was looking through, at that time, I would look at all the agencies, get an agency book, send pictures, go knock on doors. Hey, I used to be a football player. I want to come up here. I want to be an actor. Slip it under there, and I finally ran into one guy who was like, yeah, bring, Joe Kokowitz, come on in here. He's like, you're not going to make it in this business. You're not going to, but you know what? I'm going to represent you. So I found this audition myself there, go to this park here in Los Angeles to go try out for the show called American Gladiators, where people who were good on camera, who were also athletic. And I said, that's me. I got this certain je ne sais quoi. That chutzpah. I can do this, Boy, I didn't realize how green I was, but went out for the tryout, and then, like, you got the job. I'm like, what is it?
Were there a lot of people that applied at the time?
It looked like a John Travolta movie. You know, like, you probably know who that is.
Of
John
course I know who
Travolta,
John
Staying
Travolta
Alive.
is.
I mean, like, there were people like in not spandex, but like in leotards with like those high socks that are probably coming back into style. And there were people with big hair.
So did you understand what you had to wear at the time?
No.
when you
I went
applying
athletic.
for
I
it?
went athletic gear.
Okay.
So they put us on camera. I went in athletic gear, and they said, "Okay, you're going to go through these tires. You're going to do all these drills." And this is easy. Then you pick 1 to 3 characters: Malibu, Nitro, Gemini, and you go on camera in character. We're going to ask you questions. They asked me questions. What kind of questions? I don't know. So I went on. I picked Nitro, loud, explosive, cocky. I thought that was good. So I go on there, and then they asked me questions. The first, only question I remember was, "What do you eat for dinner?" And I was like, "Raw meat."
Oh,
I was such a tool.
You were playing the part already, right?
Yeah, raw meat. They had a bunch of
Sounds like Nitro, no?
Yeah. Then they had a bunch of callbacks, and then one day I'm at Universal Studios. I'm like, wow, this is real. They said this is the final tryout. We're gonna pick people. We didn't know what it was though. I mean, it was American Gladiators. We had no idea. It's a sports show. It's an activity show. We're just doing these different drills. So we're inside a big sound stage on Universal. And on the floor below us, they drew a little football field with chalk, concrete. Here's 15 yards, it's 10 yards wide. Here's the markers. And then they brought these kids in from Cal State Northridge, who they told these kids, hey, you want to try out a new game show? We'll give you $40 plus we will give you a brown lunch, a paper lunch. So these kids coming in, I'm sure they thought like, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, because there was nothing like American Gladiators on TV. So these guys came out, and I remember looking at this guy across from me. He must have been, 5'10", 20 years old, about $150, soaking wet. And what he had to do on that day on concrete is he had to pretend he was carrying the football, run past me on this little football field on concrete. And for me, it was all go. There was no show. It was all go. Because I'd been up in Hollywood for 8 months, extra work wasn't enough to pay my rent, and I was running on fumes. My Hollywood dream was running on fumes. And I was literally down to that point where if I did not get a job, I would have to move back to Orange County and be a suit. Figure out what I was going to do. Was I going to go sell, computers? What was I going to do? And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But that time, when you want to do something different, when you were taking a risk, you're standing out, it would have felt like failure.
Right.
So for me, this guy who I had to stop that day represented breathing life back into my Hollywood dream. It was an all or nothing moment. And they gave that kid the ball, and they blew the whistle, go. And I had like smoke coming out of my ears. I was probably 240, 235. I was like, oh, he's not getting by me. And this kid came at me, and what? Bam! Hit this kid. Smashed him down to the concrete. He goes unconscious.
No
the ball rolls out, and I'm like, oh man, I screwed this up bad. And I see the producer. He calls me over, and he's like, your name's Dan? He goes, come on over here, son. He's a guy who'd been around sports a long time. He's like, yeah. I said, I look sorry, I got carried away. And he goes, like, look, you got the job.
Just like that.
You got the job. And I was like, what? I was like, really? What job? I got the job? What is it? What's going to be a sports company? Yeah. But there was one important question I had to ask him. I said, what does it pay? And he said, well, you're going to make X amount. I think it was like $7,500 for 13 episodes. I'm like, yes. And to me, we had no idea what it was going to be. It was a job that paid $7,500 for 6 weeks of work. And that was a lot of money to me back then.
And you were making back then, $400 a week? Or
No, football was $4 or $5.
No, when you were working at
this was after
South
Sears.
Coast,
Yeah,
so.
South Coast. But still, $7,500 when I had no money because the football money had run out, it was like, okay, this is good. And that ended up turning into 8 seasons, money, toys, all this other stuff. And, it became my Star Trek, Captain Kirk, my Star Trek. So it was really cool.
So you became known as Nitro.
Yeah.
In the Hollywood scene.
Yeah. Became yeah, exactly. But it was funny because we still had no idea what it was going to be. Yeah, you're working on the lot. It's cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger shooting Kindergarten Cop or some movie next year.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Yeah, and he's in the trailer over there, and you get to go say hi to him, because you're on the lot, and you're both actors or performers, but you have no idea what something's going to do. Anything you're trying right now, you really don't have an idea what it's going to do or what's going to be. You go out, you give your best effort, you put everything you have into it, and what happens, happens. And that's how that was. Okay, this is a job, it does this, and it's going to be over. But then they called us and they wanted us to start doing publicity for it. I was like, oh, what? And they said, yeah, we're doing a billboard campaign. We're going to go on some talk shows and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this is different. And I remember...
this is the real deal, huh?
Yeah, I remember pulling out from my little apartment up there in Orange, up there in Los Angeles. And I pulled out at Ventura Boulevard, which is a main street up there. And I looked up over one of my favorite little restaurants was a huge billboard with me in Malibu. And I was like, holy shit, this is real. And we didn't have cell phones, like back then. Yeah. I'd had gone home, get a camera, I'd take a picture, gone and getting developed. So I just remember thinking, wow. And then we started to, travel. We'd fly up to San Francisco and say, you're going to be on this morning show and you're going to talk about American Gladiators. And it was just...
And you still didn't have any idea how big it was or how big it was becoming.
No, you just look.
So I need to ask you, how did you feel seeing your own action figure?
There's a certain...
We gotta show that for everybody. His action figure. Look at this, guys. For any of you that have not seen it, American Gladiators Nitro action figure. Man. So do they still sell these?
No, they stopped selling those in 97. Before you were born. They stopped selling those in 97, yeah. But every once in a while you can find one on eBay. Some guy named Zombie Sailor Toys is on Instagram, right? He finds old vintage toys, and he happened to come across a warehouse boxes full of old Gladiator toys. This was about a year ago. No way. And he reached out to me. He said, hey, will you do a quick promo for me? If you do, I'll give you a bunch of action figures, and I'll give you the assault cannon, everybody's favorite toy. And I was like, dude, send it to me. So I did a quick promo for him to people come to his Instagram page so they could buy the Gladiator toys. And so it's fun. Action figure being plasticized is interesting. I don't think anybody ever grows up as a little kid and say, one day I'm going to be an action figure. Look, Jay, where I came from, I far exceeded anything that I thought I was going to do. I didn't have big dreams as a kid. I just wanted to survive. And I just, even in high school, I think in my senior yearbook, I actually said, if I go back and find it, I said, where do you see yourself? Whatever.
That question.
Yeah, that question. I think
in 5 years, was it? Where do you see yourself?
It was almost as bad as I eat raw meat. When I say as bad, I don't mean bad in a judgmental way. It means it's just I was at a place and this is what my life was like.
You just didn't have direction, would you say?
Well, I had misdirection. I followed my father. My father was wonderfully charismatic. And there was moments of extreme love and support. But he was also abusive, and he was an addict. And alcohol, cocaine, opioids. So it was. It's such a hard thing to unpack. If you almost like if your parents always a dick. Always is beating you. You're not going to be nothing, kid. It's easier. But my dad was amazing too. He was amazing too. But he also, taught me about drugs. He taught me about infidelity. He taught, those are the things he taught me through his actions. So it's really, really complex. And what I wrote was something to the effect of, living in France, being a gigolo.
I need to see this.
No, and I was 100% serious because there was a movie called American Gigolo with an actor named Richard Gere back then.
Wait, no. I'm thinking of Gigolo was it Rob Snyder?
That's probably more what I would have ended up. Like a wannabe gigolo. That's how I would have probably ended up. But there was a movie called, so in my era, when I was Rocky, when I was like 13 or 14, man, was that movie. I wanted to be a boxer. Before that, it was Bruce Lee. I wanted to be a karate guy.
Legends. And
then it was John Travolta. There was a movie called Staying Alive, and it just changed everything. He was cool. He was a dancer. Then I was going to be like him, like Tony Mont. I can't remember his name. Just like Scarface was for another generation. And then, but yeah, him. I mean, that movie was just like, whoa. And Richard Gere was, he was this
great
guy.
Actor.
He was, he got paid to be with women. He lived a high-class lifestyle. He was cool. He did those reverse sit-ups from like a thing in his room. We had back then, those gravity boots. No, nobody. The first time I ever saw them was in that movie American Gigolo, and I was like, he was lean, and he was doing sit-ups, hanging from a place, and he got this lifestyle because he was smart with women and he was handsome, and I figured those were some of my humble qualities when I was back then. I wasn't bad looking, and girls I was interested in. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a gigolo. That was my life ambition.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? That
is crazy, but it's crazy how everything just kind of worked its course without you even planning. And it all started with you just getting the position of Nitro, right?
Right, but things don't happen by chance. The meetings happen by chance, but it's up to you to take that step, right? To have the courage or the ignorance to take that step. Things, and then tons of hard work.
Absolutely.
To in college, to be able to play football and get a scholarship, the training, the dedication, the work, to being able to play pro football, the same thing, to being able to keep in shape, to do the job, get the job of the American Gladiators. Once as an American Gladiator, take the acting, the voice, the writing, all these things to take the next step. There's been so much work. There's so much work. People see the end result. Oh, you got a good TV show. They didn't see all the work that went behind it. And then they don't know what it's, and then to be famous and then to not be, in a sense, I still have a fame, a little bit,
of course,
where people know who I am. I walk down the street. Oh, hey, you're Nitro, all that kind of stuff. But from selling out Madison Square Garden, doing all these things, and how do you rebuild? How do you have enough resilience to go in another pattern, to face failure again? Because once you have success and then you don't have that success, there's a lot of pride. So when I first got to the business, I would go knock on anybody's door. I got in the business. I'd hand them a resume, hand a picture, slip it under there. You bang on the door. Hey, let me in. And then when you're famous, people will recognize you and you, and you're like, hey, I'm not going to go bang on that guy's door. I'm not going to do that. And I think that can be a trap, because there is that balance between being in desire, just supply and demand, like, oh, he must not be very good if he's coming on, he's always bugging me. So there's that balance. And I think later it gets away from that, like we were talking earlier, that it becomes more about mission. Mission. This is what I feel like I'm called to do. When you get to that place where you're walking in mission, you forget more about the rejection. You forget more about how do I look? Am I appearing good? And you worry about being good. And you worry about putting something positive out into the world. You worry about those things. So it changes when you go from what can I get to what can I give.
What can I give? How can I serve?
And I know that sounds really, really stereotypical and cliche. Everyone says that. I want to be in service. I want to give. But when you become mission-oriented and it's outside of you, it's easier because they're not rejecting you personally. They're rejecting your beliefs or the thing that you want to accomplish. And I think that's the hard thing about being in the entertainment business is they reject you. This is my picture. I'm reading these lines. You're saying no to me. If I have a product, hey, I've got this, this Perrier water I want to sell you. Hey, try this water. It's bubbly. It's better. It comes from this source. Oh, no, I don't like that kind of water. But it's not you directly. I think that's one of the hardest things that people in the entertainment industry have. Actors, models, writers, whatever it is. They have to be able to face rejection daily. And part of being a creative person, there's a certain part of the art of you, which has to be vulnerable, which has to be open. An acting coach, Stella Adler, said, have the heart of a rose, but the skin of a rhinoceros, or the hide of a rhinoceros, where you keep open, you be vulnerable, but some things hurt you. And I see you have Grant Cardone's book there. And I remember him saying something like, he worked through the fear of rejection. It just doesn't bother him. He got rid of it. Oh, reject me? Okay, great. I'll go find something else. Where I think that's a valuable skill, as long as you're cognizant, you're not being, of what you're doing. If you're, but that's a valuable skill, because I think so many of us are so concerned about what people think about us.
Absolutely, of course.
First, let me set the landscape. Steroids, back in 1982, when someone first whispered the words in my ear. I saw a guy, I'd been injured my freshman year at Santa Ana College, and I couldn't put the weight and the size back on that I wanted to. And there's a guy working out in the gym, and he was huge. And I was like, dude, you're huge. You look great. What do you do? He says, I take these things called steroids. It's not like it's now where you know what it is, she knows what it is. Nobody knew what it was. It wasn't illegal. Very few doctors prescribed them. And I was like, well, what is it? And he says, well, it's this thing that makes you bigger, stronger, faster. I'm like, what? And he says, yeah, I think this, you heard of Schwarzenegger. Yeah, Lou Ferrigno. Supposedly they take him. There's a couple pro football players that let your body grow and you get muscles and da-da-da-da. And it helps you recuperate faster. I'm like, dude, I'm 17 years old. I'm in. He goes, yeah, my doctor's up in L.A. I was like, oh, I did go to L.A. I went up to L.A. to see the steroid doctor. I forgot. But I went to San Gabriel Valley, which isn't Hollywood. I went up there. I was 17 and a half. Doctor said, no, you need to be 18. I was like, oh. So on my 18th birthday, my dad gave me $172 because that's what the doctor told me it was going to cost. And I went up there and he introduced me to steroids, testosterone, Dianabol, Anavar, Anadrol. It's alive. My Perrier, it's like I don't want to think it was my crotch bubbling because I had a Perrier between my legs, and all of a sudden I hear this. Or I was incontinent or something. So the doctor said that, and I was like, oh, okay, it's a doctor, must be safe. And that day in the office, I took my first injection of testosterone in 1982. And again, nobody knew what this was. It wasn't in the magazines. There was no Men's Health, They weren't talking about muscle and fitness. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on radio. It wasn't articles. There was no internet. You could go in the library if you wanted to and looked at the Dewey Decimal System and maybe found an article about it. But it wasn't, like it was now. And that's how it started. That's how it started. And the good thing about steroids is that they work. The bad thing about steroids is that they work.
You get addicted, and would you say that it's was it hard for you to get off of them?
Yeah, extremely hard. I've taken my first book, Gladiator, True Story of Roids Rage Redemption. I you talk about the journey because it's different now. I think when you see a big person, you see a buffed out dude right away, the mentality, roid head, and it's not so like, oh my God, how did he do that? Look at that guy. He's an Adonis. Either you think, cheater, or you think, he took roids. That's how he did it. It's not, I think that admiration and that like, oh my God, the mysteriousness is gone behind it. And would you agree?
Yeah, I can say that because I feel like there's sometimes a misconception. You automatically see a buff guy. Okay, wait, are they using or did they get it naturally?
95% of the time they use. 99% of the time. And you just have to trust your eyes. You have to trust. There are a few freaks of nature. I don't know who they are. I've rarely been wrong about guys. And, plus guys will lie. They still lie. And I think that's unfair to people because they will lie and you feel like you're doing the same workout routine. You feel like you're eating the same, but why am I not getting the results? I'm not good enough. If people just come out and just say, hey, yeah, I took a cycle of, test. I put on 22 pounds and this is how I get lean. Look, you got to work out as hard as hell. You take testosterone and or whatever you're taking, you don't train like a beast, you're not going to get gains. And I think that's the other misconception. Oh, he's that big because he did that and he's not training.
You still got to work hard for it.
It gives you the ability to work harder and harder and harder because it helps you recover more quickly. So you have to put in the hours. So when you see a guy that's huge, he has put in so much time, effort, dedication, discipline, diet, going to the gym day after day, hour after hour. He think of him as Picasso, and that's his body. Instead of paint, he's using anabolics, training, and diet and exercise, and the neurochemistry and all that stuff to get that way. It's not easy. Like I've taken a bunch of cycles in my life, and I was never like shredded like that. I love to eat too much, so it's hard. So I think, like, back to what you're saying, I think the mentality behind roids have changed, steroids have changed, where people will automatically see somebody, they make that assumption, and they're right most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, or 98 out of 100 times. Like I said, the good thing is that they work. The bad thing is that they work, and then there are side effects. And the natural thing that happens is your body starts to suppress your own testosterone production. So you go on a negative level of testosterone when you go off. But the science is advanced now. There's a post-cycle therapy. So when you go off your cycle, you take natural things that stimulate pituitary, stimulate your testicles to make testosterone naturally. But anybody who's thinking about taking steroids, I would just say, why? What do you want to accomplish? if you're a little older and you go and you actually have low testosterone, that's a medical need. Just like if you had, your body didn't produce insulin, you have, and the side effects of not having enough testosterone are terrible.
So what advice would you give someone that is in the fitness industry, whether they want to get into bodybuilding, get into shape? Would you say go the natural way?
I think I wouldn't give them the advice. I wouldn't tell them what to do. I would say, hey, do it. If you want to compete, with the pros, I don't know who they are anymore. I know it used to be Lee Haney, Jay Cutler, all these guys. If you want to compete at that level, you're going to have to take roids. If you want to go on the natural show, don't take roids. There is no right path. It's up to that person, but just be clear, you want to get a little, and I know tons of women take them too. Don't get me wrong, to get lean, to get cut, for athletics. I would just be very clear on why you're doing it, and a lot of times I think it's to get more self-confidence, more self-esteem.
Yeah, I can see that.
To be looked at, to be adored. But I don't think people think about it that way. Oh, I just want to get a little bit stronger. I want to get a little bit bigger. Why? Because you want people to compliment you. You want people to, say good things about you. You want people to go, wow, look
more
at
of an
you.
Exterior thing.
Yeah, well, I think so. And if it's for a sport, most sports, it's illegal now. I think every sport besides bodybuilding, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to cheat to do this. So it's a completely different landscape, but I think it's, different for everyone. But I also think, there's a difference between testosterone replacement therapy and taking steroids at a young age for anabolic benefit, but eventually you'll have to pay the piper if you don't know how to come off your cycle correctly. You have to come off your cycle correctly,
Okay. So going back to my question.
Yes.
Can you take us back to December 18th, 2013, when you told those words to yourself, those 4 words, I want to die?
So I was at the gym training, and I've been a lifelong fitness guy. It's been part of my identity, the strong guy, the gladiator, the former football player, the guy who can lift.
Doing everything right, right?
Yeah, I was doing everything right. I hadn't been on roids for years. And I was at the CrossFit gym up in Hollywood, CrossFit Horsepower in Studio City, and I started to get a little chest pain. And next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. I've had a heart attack. And yeah, facing your mortality is an interesting thing. I think in a moment, if you survive, you get the answers to the game of life.
What were those answers?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. But you get the answers, I wouldn't say the game of life, to life. Because when you think you're going to die, when you're having a heart attack, and you ask your doctor, am I going to die? Before you go in the cath lab, the cardiovascular lab where they do the surgeries, and your doctor doesn't say no, not on my watch, Nitro. The doctor says, look, you've been having a heart attack for 3 hours. We're going to get in there and see what's wrong. Well, we're going to do everything we can. He's not saying you're not going to die. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, really? And in that moment of surrender, there's such clarity on what's important to you in your life. And it's not like this is important. It comes to you in the way of what you think about and what you want in that moment. Do you know what I mean? It's not like someone saying, here's a lesson. And I could tell you at that moment, I didn't care about American Gladiators. I didn't care about the size of my home. I didn't care, if I was driving a Porsche or, a Ford.
So you didn't care about the materialistic things at the time?
Correct. I didn't care about that. What I wanted the people I love close to me, and I wanted them to know how much I love them if I was going to die. That's what was important to me. And that totally made me change my framework and paradigm for my rules for living. Because that was always something way below success and the big house, it was down there. For me, it was success, fame, the bigger house, the nicer car, the second house, hey, maybe even a third house. That was the thing, that was my values, that I was driven by. Success, see me. Let me get more. But in that moment, the moment of darkness in the shadows, and I was like, whoa. That's mind-blowing, that what is the most important thing to me. Then as I was in the hospital recovering, I had a moment of, deep depression, just depression, where I didn't know what my life was going to be like. it was a whole new world. Was I going to be able to train? Was I going to be able to exercise? Am I going to be this guy who's going to be on a pacemaker the rest of his life? You don't know. And, I hadn't seen the doctor yet on the first morning after they put a stent in and all that stuff. And I remember I just sat there and I just said, you know what? If I cannot live my life on my own terms, the way I want to live, then I just want to die. And at that moment, I also promised myself one thing. I promised myself that, I wasn't going to be this grown man, crying and feeling sorry for himself in the hospital, right? I'm a gladiator. Big boys don't cry. That was the mentality I grew up with. But I also learned something, very profound in that moment. I learned that sometimes the grief we feel is larger than our human capacity to hold it.
That's powerful.
And even though I said I'm not going to cry, and men don't cry so much, these tears were rolling down my face. And I just started to weep. And I was just asking myself, why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? Right? Why me? I did everything right, like you said. Why me? And once I got to that point where I couldn't cry anymore, and in that silence, a new thought came to me. Instead of why me, I just said, you know what? I asked myself the question, what can I be given my circumstances? And when I changed the question, I got different answers. And the answer is, well, but you know what? You can be, someone who shows people how to make a comeback. You can be someone who takes a tragedy and turns it into a gift of inspiration. There's these different possibilities in front of you. You can be someone who makes a full comeback and trains and shows how great life can be. And I felt in that moment that there was some inspiration and some hope.
Like there was a bigger purpose for your life.
I don't know if there's a bigger purpose, but it was at least in a direction by asking a better question that moved me forward and away from that poor me victimhood.
That emptiness, right?
Well, the victimhood, the victim, why me, right? To forward, I can take this forward action. Still, you don't know what's going to happen, but it gives you a way to do things. And one of the things I always tell people, because I know there's so many people who go out there and they think, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? What do I got to do? What kind of goals? What kind of goals? What kind of goals? And I think the fundamental mistake most people make is instead of saying, what can I do? What I do and what I've learned to do is saying, how do I want to be? And why that's significant is this, because you cannot control in life what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. And I made a promise to myself that I would do my best to live my life, regardless of what happens to me in this situation, regardless if I can't work out, regardless if I'm, on a pacemaker, or regardless if I die in a month, I am committing right now to being a certain way. And that is to live my life with grace, dignity, and positivity. Grace, dignity, positivity. And that will inform how I do everything, how I'm going to be in the world. So before you take action, I want you to think how you're going to be. You can use my words. I'm going to have grace, dignity, and positivity. And no matter what you say to me, no matter what you do to me, no matter what happens to me, I'm going to have grace, dignity, and positivity, no matter what you throw at me. Then you put the action upon that. So you appear how you want to be in the world. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you become an unstoppable force in that sense. That's amazing.
Well, you become a force that is grounded in how they want to appear in the world. I don't know if you become an unbreakable.
Not unbreakable.
I don't know if you become unbreakable, unstoppable. Look, here's what I learned. I learned that a broken heart does not mean a broken man. And that was really, 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 really important to me to learn that just because I had a broken heart, that I wasn't a broken man, that there was something deeper and better in me. There was a light, there was a spirit that burned bright in me. And regardless if I could exercise, regardless if I could, go back and do the athletic things, I still had that light. And any way I could, I was going to practice grace, dignity, and positivity to share that light.
That is deep, man. I really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. So what advice can you give someone who is struggling with finding their purpose, who is feeling unfulfilled? How can one live a happy, fulfilled, meaningful life?
Well, there's two different questions there. The first question was, what advice can you give someone who what?
Who is feeling unfulfilled
and purpose.
And so, trying to find their purpose.
Okay. So I don't think we have a purpose. I think that word is such a buzzword that's so overused and it gets people tripped up. Here's how it gets people tripped up. One is when people think purpose, I think they think, oh my God, when I find my purpose, I'm going to have so much passion. I'm always going to want to feel like doing this thing.
Right.
You know, I'm going to lose myself. Work will become play, and it won't be struggle. There won't be the grind. It's, once you find your passion. And you can still be extremely passionate about something. You can have your heart and you can be on fire. But there are going to be days where it sucks. There's going to be days when you don't feel like it. There's going to be days when you just got to grind to get to the next step. So when you use passion, I think it leads people down a wrong path, because I think especially this younger generation, they get some resistance. They get some, I didn't feel like doing it today. Must not be my passion. Oh my God, this is really hard.
You need that discipline, right?
But this is really hard. So it must not be my passion, right? Because if it's passion, it's easy, it's flow. I always want to feel like doing that. So when you're following your passion, just know there's days, man, you're going to have to grind. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to, every day, you have to just grind. And there's going to be days where it flows, where it's beautiful, where everything comes together. But understand that about passion, that it doesn't mean that it's, every single day. So that's the first thing I want people to understand. The second thing is, how do you achieve something? Obviously, by setting goals and working and breaking down smaller steps, what you can do every day. The third thing is you talk about fulfillment and happiness. So you have to know what makes you happy, one. I was just coaching this younger girl. She was a singer yesterday. And she's like, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And she's a pretty well-known singer too. And I was like, okay, what makes you happy? And she's like, oh.
She didn't know.
I don't know. And I was like, I know this sounds rudimentary. But the thing I want you to do for me today is I want you to write a happy list for me. Just write 10 or 12 things that make you happy, that you can control, that you can do. And I want you to start to spend a little more time in that bucket, right? So just as, you want to go to Hawaii. Well, how are you going to get there? Where is it? You have to know. You have to know what makes you happy. So that's a fundamental thing too. And then when you start to understand what your values are and what makes you happy, then you can simply have a list of things that changes as we change.
Of course.
That changes, that you can do, that you can go to. You want to feel success. Well, what can you do? What things do you do that make you feel successful? You have to have
being able to define those things
and know what they are, to be super, super, super clear. And fulfillment, I think, comes from that. But here's what I've learned about happiness. I've learned that most people think happiness evolves or comes from the biggest successes in your life. And they put off their happiness until they get that big thing, the job, the promotion, the new car. You get to a certain number of listeners on your podcast, your book gets published. Well, those things happen rarely, usually.
Of course.
And if you put off your happiness to them, then you're not enjoying the journey. The goal of happiness and fulfillment is to be happy every damn day. And research shows us that it's not the size of the event, it's the number, the frequency. So you have to know what makes you happy. You have to go out and do those every single day. And I think the biggest thing that changed for me after the heart attack was learning the difference between gratitude and gratification. Because to me, before this gratitude is such a buzzword now. Oh, I just want to have gratitude. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. But how do you practice that on a daily basis? What's the practice? What's the skill behind it that works for you? For me, before gratitude was, hey, thanks, man.
That's it.
Yeah, hey, thank you. Cool, thanks. It wasn't until, I almost died did I really understand what being grateful was. And then I had to learn how to practice that on a daily basis so I would feel gratitude every single day. And for me, it's the simple moments of human beauty and truth. The simple moments of human beauty and truth that used to slip by me in the past because I was so busy chasing my goals.
And you were taking those little things for granted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what is the list of little things every day? Turn the radio on, your favorite song comes on. You're like, oh, yeah, a good cup of coffee, the smell of fresh sheets. For me, I'm a nature guy. When I walk outside and the sun hits my face, and I just take a moment, I'm like, oh, man, that sun feels good. Those are things that I'll skip by, walking through my neighborhood and seeing, a little kid laughing, puppies. These little things, everyday, simple, small moments, for me, is where happiness lies. And what I do is I take a second and I register those. I take, it's just a second. Like, oh, the sun feels good on my face. I take a breath, I breathe it in, I feel it, then I move on. I think a lot of younger people, when I say younger, your age, and a lot of people in general, I think the challenge, and I still struggle with this sometimes, is I think a lot of people are afraid if they take a moment to smell the roses, so to speak, that they're going to lose their drive. They're going to become complacent. And so many people become complacent without even achieving success. They become comfortable, right? And I think that's the danger to success, to happiness, to greatness, right? Is becoming comfortable. But look, if you're comfortable where you're at, I have a friend who's a mailman. He's a happy dude. He gets to be home for his kids every day, at a certain time. He's got a set salary, a set job. He lives in a decent home, and he's comfortable, and that's great if you're happy. But if you're the mailman, you're like, oh, I hate this job. I got to do this here, but what I really want to do, then you have to get out of that comfort zone. But if you're happy with a simple life, and I believe in simplicity, right? As I get older, my life has become more and more simple. I constantly purge and get rid of stuff and do less. And I appreciate meditation. I appreciate silence. I appreciate quiet. When in my 20s, you're like...
It was just fast-paced, right?
Yeah, if you were like saying, you're going to really enjoy sitting alone in a room, by yourself breathing, I'd be like, get out of here.
You're like, that's not me. That's not Nitro.
No, get out of here. You're gonna get great satisfaction from sitting on a hilltop, looking down and breathing for 30 minutes. You're gonna find so much joy out of sitting with your legs crossed, breathing and thinking about the people you love in your life. That's gonna give you the most satisfaction when you're young. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. That's not going to be me. But it's interesting how with time and wisdom, how your life changes. And what's beautiful about today, I think, is so many of the younger people are getting this at a younger age. Visualization.
It's powerful.
Yes. And it's one of the most, and it's, to me, visualization is meditation. Meditation is visualization. Visualization usually has more to do with creating a result or bringing something to fruition. But it's still the same thing as meditation, where you slow your breathing down, you focus on one thing. So instead of focusing on your breath or a mantra, you focus on, creating, wealth or abundance or a future, or conditioning your brain for a success that you haven't had yet. That is the most fundamental tool, and it's, I think, one of the most underused tools, because so I had another client like a week ago. I was like, oh, I can't sit still. I can't visualize. I can't breathe. It's so hard. My brain goes. And I said, just the fact that you're sitting there is you are doing it. Right? And just as if you were 350 pounds out of shape sitting on the couch, you wanted to run a marathon, don't think you walk around the block once and you can run the marathon. Meditation and visualization is a skill set. It's a skill set you learn over time, but it's probably the number one thing you can do to create a future that doesn't exist, but also to stop the stress cycle in your body. That's breaking down your immunities. That's giving you acid reflux. That's giving you heart palpitations. That's putting you in a heightened state of alert. It's the number one thing you can do is learn a skill of breathing or something like that to stop that stress coming at you.
Awesome, man. Can you talk to us a little bit about your latest book, F Dying?
F Dying, that's a book I wrote about the heart attack. So after the heart attack, I spent a couple of years studying what makes people happy, what makes people successful, in that sense, what gives people fulfillment and meaning in their life. All my life, I've been a student. I've been a student of religion, philosophy, and I just took a deeper dive into it and looked at the research and the literature, and then used my own life as an example for things you can do to find, meaning and fulfillment. A lot of what I just talked about in your life, and just lessons I learned.
You guys need to check out that book. Check it out. And it's available on Amazon?
It's Amazon. So what I've been doing for this new year is on my website, dannitroclark.net, I've been giving away, I think I'm going to give away for 2 more weeks, free copies of the book.
Oh, nice.
So all they have to do is
You guys make sure to check that out.
Yeah, all they have to do is go get a free digital download of the book.
Okay.
A free PDF. They go there, they put their name and their email, and then I think they get a button that they can automatically download a copy of the book. Because I made money on the book. Yeah, it was successful. It was a bestseller, and now the whole idea is to create transformation in life. And I got so many positive reviews from the book. Like, oh, this is transformational. Oh, I use this tip. I was just at dinner the other night with a random someone read my book, and it's weird the things that affect different people. Like one person will say, I like this. Oh, this meant a lot. Oh, you talk about your mom and her, that means a lot. Oh, but they both said the one that affected, the one tip and tool I give that affected them the most was how to look at a day and how to change the framework of a day or something that you have to do, a lot of in LA. So it goes from I have to into I get to.
Yes.
And this one was like traffic. I was up in LA and I had to come down to my brother's birthday in Orange County at night in traffic. And that could be a 3-hour drive.
But you're like, I get to.
Well, I could do it this way. First I was like, oh shit, I gotta get on the freeway. What do I gotta do? I get on, there's so much traffic. God, I'm gonna sit here for 3 hours. Oh, my back hurts. God, why me? I gotta go do this. Why am I going down here? Maybe I'll just call and cancel, And then I talk, well, I could look at it this way. I love to learn, right? I can look at this as now as I get to have a chance where I'm in the car to listen to this podcast I've wanted to listen to for months. I get to find a time I'm lucky and fortunate that my brother is alive. After I've had one brother who died of alcoholism and an older brother who died from being electrocuted. I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful. I get to go see my brother. I get to go see my family, people that I've learned that mean the most to me. I get to spend time with them. So a lot of it is perspective. On the way back, it was raining. I was like, oh my God, nobody can drive. It's late at night. I'm top. And I flipped on the radio and I was Howard Stern interviewing. Maybe it was Glenn. I can't remember exactly what the interview was, but it was someone who Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, Bill Murray, it fascinates me. So I got a chance to listen to that. So a lot of it is how you look at your day and what framework and what lens you put it through that determines the quality of your time, because they're both the same thing.
Right.
Driving in traffic for 3 hours.
It's changing your perspective.
Yeah, changing your perspective. And it's something that, with practice you can do.
Okay. You guys got to try those tips and they will definitely help. So just to wrap things up, how do you intend to leave a legacy? Out of all the accomplishments that you've done, all the experience, the wisdom that you've, acquired over the years, how do you intend to leave a legacy?
Well, I think no matter what I do, there's always going to be a legacy of, red, white, and blue spandex. I mean, that's on it's on TV. It's running on Pluto. There's always going to be that legacy of that show, which, is fun. And I think it brings a lot of people joy. A lot of kids got motivation. People say, I named my dog Nitro. I named my horse Nitro. I wanted to be like you when I grew up. Hey, I wasn't working out. I saw you. I was having a hard time. And I saw that show and it gave me the belief that I could do that, especially for someone of, I won't say I'm of color, but I'm not a Caucasian guy. I'm half Asian, I was an Asian guy.
A little bit of both, right?
Yeah, I was an Asian guy. I didn't have any heroes growing up. You were my hero, I love the way you never gave up. So I think there's going to be that legacy. But I also want to share the legacy of what it means to be a different kind of gladiator, be a different kind of man, to be the new gladiator, which is to, still the goal is to commit, crush, conquer. Commit, crush, conquer. But when I say that, there's a kumbaya moment, where the man before was like, you don't cry, you run over everything, you smash things, to now, till you get what you can get. That has changed to, like we spoke about earlier, it's more about how can I affect change in the world? How can I, like Gandhi said, become the change I want to see in the world? How can I make an impact? How can I help people go through the struggles that I went through, let them know they're not alone, give them a faster, quicker, better way to overcome so they can move on and make an impact in the world. And the way I do that is most mornings, Tuesday through Friday, I do a Facebook live show. Dan Nitro Clark on Facebook. I also do a podcast.
Calm the Beast.
Calm the Beast, but I think we're rebranding. I think we're rebranding. I think we just had a big branding thing, and I think most people want to be empowered. They want to get transformation. They don't want to even though the calming part is good. So I think we're thinking about, and I'm going to get your opinion on this, we're going to be calling it the Gladiator Way: Commit, Crush, Conquer.
Ooh, I love that.
It might be too close to Unbreakable.
Ooh, man, that's powerful. I like it.
Commit, Crush, Conquer with the caveat that is like, and that would be the lens that I start putting guests through. So even if it's anxiety, you have anxiety. What are you going to commit to 100% to crush your anxiety, to conquer it, And the way you commit, you have to commit 100%. And even if your 100% is walking around the block as your first step to fitness, commit 100% to do that. Getting better 1% each day. Japanese concept, ikigai, just getting a little better each day. So don't think, when I say commit, crush, conquer, it's like, today you're going to go out and run a whole marathon. No, for you, what do you have to commit to today? What are you going to crush by taking massive action? Again, even if it's walking around the block. Even if it's like today, I'm going to eat a little less sugar. What actions are you going to take to crush that so you can conquer that obesity, conquer the anxiety, conquer your feelings of not being good enough? What skills are you going to learn? So we're just putting it through a different lens, commit, crush, conquer, which I think is a little more uplifting and motivating. And, I think it's going to be through the lens of, instead of being a psychologist, more of being, you got this, go, you can do this.
Inspirational.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that fits my personality a little better. So it's just a little shift. So I think we're changing to the Gladiator way, commit, crush, conquer. But you'll be able to find, if you go look at Calm the Beast. And then also writing a third book. And it's just about opening up and, feeling like you have things to teach. Because that's a problem for a lot of us, is that we all have skills. We all have something that we've done, that we've overcome. And it's just understanding that even though you may not be as proficient as the top expert in the world, in your field, you're probably better than 99% of the other people who aren't in that field, and they can learn from you. So believing in your message, putting out there constantly with the whole goal of mission and idea of helping make an impact, helping change lives, and becoming the change you want to see in the world.
Man, Dan, you're surprising me, man. You have a lot going on. So how can our viewers get a hold of you or contact you?
Everything through the website.
Okay, so through the website.
DanNitroClark.net. Just go through there. They can contact me there. I did bring this action figure, and if your listeners go to Instagram, and what would a good hashtag be? Unbreakable Nitro.
Ooh, I love that. The UnBreakables Nitro. How about that?
Unbreakable Nitro. Hashtag the UnBreakables Nitro. What I'll do is we'll pick, me and Jay will pick one winner under that hashtag, and we'll send them out an autographed Nitro American Gladiator action figure. Rare.
You guys heard it first.
So go do that right now. Go hashtag that and tell us something you got from this podcast.
Yes, that's very important.
Tell us something like, hey, you know what? I love what you said, Dan. You can call me Dan. You can call me Nitro. You know what you and Jay were talking about that I liked? You know what was cool? That was a cool moment for me. That resonated with me this way. Put the hashtag. Jay and her media team will go find it, and we'll sign it. I'll sign it, and I'll send it out to you guys.
Absolutely. You guys heard it first. If this message resonates with any of you guys, like it, share it, leave a comment, and use the hashtag below. We're going to select our winner, and we're going to send you a special gift. And thank you again, Dan, for this special interview. I really, really appreciate you. And I'm very, very humbled to have the opportunity to interview you and share your story. And is there anything else that you would like to add or tell our viewers at home?
Well, thank you for your courage in creating this, because I know you had no experience in this, and I know it's new for you, and I know it's something to step out of your comfort zone. And so thank you for having the courage to do this, because when you have the courage to do this, you show other people what it's like to have courage through your example, and that gives people hope, and it gives people direction, inspiration. So, keep doing this.
Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
UnBreakables.